if that's the case and they're actually thinking about an electric jet, why is Elon Musk so hesitant to say like we're going to build it and who's doing it and that there is even a project underway other than like this pie in the sky like idea he has in his mind?
One is focus, another is resources, and I think there's also an element of surprise where he wants to drop this on people like the Roadster.
Yeah.
And the last thing is timing. Like if it's not even viable until 2028, like he's already had some credibility issues as far as timeline and expectations and setting the bar really high. So why do that for himself?
Yeah. Gotcha. I mean, I love this thought exercise though, because I wrote in my notes, like Tesla's going to become a UFO company. And I just think it's so crazy. Like that's what I think of when I think of this just this thing that just and like fly, you know, it just seems like it's crazy, but it's like just an example of how it all comes back to the battery technology and Tesla's lead in that. And lead in like manufacturing them at a cheap cost is like really enabling them to really change all sorts of types of transport, not just cars. And so I think this is just like one crazy far out there theory, but you could take this a million different ways with like a different ship, you know, once the energy density continues to improve. But I guess I'm kind of curious, like, do you think you can just take for granted that these energy density improvements will occur? Like it's easy to like predict like, okay, we need to get to 400 and it's 5% a year. We'll get there in 8 years, but like that works on a spreadsheet. That's not reality, you know?
Yeah, JB made it seem like it was pretty predictable, like roughly 5% a year. I think what's really interesting is you've got this oligopoly with Boeing and Airbus, and just like we've seen with SpaceX, where the United Launch Alliance ULA, that's Boeing and Lockheed Martin, like look at what SpaceX has done to that. They've just completely demolished them on costs and capability, and the cost per seat on their crew program for SpaceX is $55 million. For Boeing Lockheed Martin, it's $90. So NASA is paying almost twice as much for literally the exact same thing, delivering one person to like the International Space Station. It's bonkers.
And that's because they made rockets reusable, which is something that Boeing and Lockheed Martin said was impossible.
Exactly.
So your point is that Elon Musk can disrupt another oligopoly that Boeing leads.
Yeah, it's not a fair fair fight, and you can see with that simple just pricing analogy, they're basically the next Detroit, and I think eventually it'll be the same thing with Boeing and Airbus. They're making these giant planes for tens or hundreds of millions of dollars that has a lot of passenger capacity, but that's all going to get smaller and smaller, and that's going to drive up the units from 700 plus per year for the company to like, I don't know, maybe 10,000 plus of smaller planes, and then all of a sudden you get this economies of scale.
Why do you say it's driving the plane sizes going down?
Well, it's definitely going to. So one, you've got like the weight of the batteries. So I think when you've got
if it's an electric plane, you're saying?
Yeah.
Assuming planes go electric, this is how Boeing and Airbus would have to adapt.
Totally.
Okay.
So with a giant plane, you've got all this fuel, right? But as you're in the air, you are burning fuel. The weight of the aircraft is decreasing. The efficiency is increasing. So you get the benefits of that. So I think physics-wise, for that reason, and because you'll be able to take off and land anywhere, you're not going to need to do a ton of people, right? It's kind of like the same analogy as Elon was thinking with this whole like Tesla minibus concept. And at first he was like, you know, maybe you fit like 12 to 15 people, maybe even more in a minibus and kind of take off and go to your destination, smart route it, something like that. But I think he seems to be going back on that a little bit. Because why not? I mean, the cost per mile of an autonomous, let's say, Model Y, the economics are so good. Instead of like one minibus, just do 2 Model Ys. And I think that same analogy will apply to electric aircrafts as well.